This chapter describes how Lord Balaram and Lord Krishna, running as if in fear, went to Dwarka. Then Lord Krishna heard the message of Rukmini from the mouth of a Brahmin and chose her as his wife. King Muchukunda, shown mercy by Lord Sri Krishna, offered obeisances and circumambulated him. The king then left the cave and saw that humans, animals, trees, and plants were all smaller than when he had fallen asleep. From this he could understand that the age of Kali was at hand. Thus, in a mood of detachment from all material association, the king began worshipping the Supreme Lord, Sri Hari. Lord Krishna returned to Mathura, which was still under siege from the barbarian army. He destroyed this army, collected all the valuables the soldiers had been carrying, and set off for Dwarka. Just then, Jarasandha arrived on the scene with a force of 23 Akshohinis. Lord Balaram and Lord Krishna, acting as if fearful, left their riches aside and ran far away. Because Jarasandha could not appreciate their true power, he ran after them. After running a long way, Ram and Krishna came to a mountain named Pravashana and proceeded to climb it. Jarasandha thought that they had hidden inside a cave and looked all over for them. Unable to find them, he built fires on all sides of the mountain. As the vegetation on the mountain slope burst into flames, Krishna and Balaram jumped off the peak. After reaching the ground unseen by Jarasandha and his followers, they returned to the Dwarka fort, which floated within the sea. Jarasandha decided that Ram and Krishna had burned to death in the fire, and he took his army back to his kingdom. That's what is described now from we did verse 1 and 2 yesterday, which was still dealing with Muchukunda, and the next two also deal with Muchukunda, where it says, the sober king, beyond material association and free of doubt, was convinced of the value of austerity. Absorbing his mind in Lord Krishna, he came to Gandhamadana mountain. Purport. The name Gandhamadana indicates a place of delightful fragrances. Undoubtedly, Gandhamadana was filled with the aroma of wildflowers and forest honey, and with other natural scents. Text number 4. There he arrived at Badrik Ashram, the abode of Lord Narayan, where, remaining tolerant of all dualities, he peacefully worshipped the Supreme Lord Hari by performing severe austerities. Text 5. The Lord returned to Mathura, which was still surrounded by Yavanas. Then he destroyed the army of barbarians and began taking their valuables to Dwarka. Purport. It is clear from this verse that Kala Yavana alone pursued Lord Krishna into the mountain cave. When Krishna returned to the besieged city of Mathura, he eliminated the vast barbarian army. Text 6. As the wealth was being carried by oxen and men under Lord Krishna's direction, Jarasandha appeared at the head of 23 armies. O king, seeing the fierce waves of the enemy's army, the two Madhavas, imitating human behavior, ran swiftly away. Abandoning the abundant riches, fearless but feigning fear, they went many yojanas on their lotus-like feet. When he saw them fleeing, Powerful Jarasandha laughed loudly and then pursued them with chariots and foot soldiers. He could not understand the exalted position of the two lords. Apparently exhausted after fleeing a long distance, the two lords climbed a high mountain named Pravashana, upon which Lord Indra showers incessant rain. Although he knew they were hiding on the mountain, Jarasandha could not find any trace of them. Therefore, O king, he placed firewood on all sides and set the mountain ablaze. Purport. Clearly, we are observing one of the Supreme Lord's transcendental pastimes. Although the Bhagavatam states that the two lords, Krishna and Balaram, were, quote, exhausted, unquote, even in their so-called exhausted state, they were able to quickly climb a high mountain and shortly thereafter jump off it to the ground. It would be unwise and illogical to ignore the whole picture the sages are giving us here and instead try to pick apart isolated descriptions. Clearly, we are watching the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the midst of his spiritual pastimes. We are not observing an ordinary human being. Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram were still quite young men when this pastime took place, and one can easily see in these descriptions how they must have been enjoying themselves, eagerly fleeing from the somewhat ridiculous king, Jarasandha, racing up a mountain, jumping off, and totally befuddling the constantly failing demon, who somehow or other never lost confidence in himself. Seen without envy or quarrelsomeness, the Lord's pastimes are immensely entertaining. Text 12. The two of them then suddenly jumped from the burning mountain, which was 11 yojanas high, and fell to the ground. Unseen by their opponent or his followers, O king, those two most exalted yadus returned to their city of Dwarka, which had the ocean as a protective moat. Jarasandha, moreover, mistakenly thought that Balaram and Keshava had burned to death in the fire. Thus, he withdrew his vast military force and returned to the Magadha kingdom. So that ends that, and we move on to the beginning of the marriage of Krishna to Rukmini, which takes up the rest of this chapter and the next chapter. I want to reread a sentence. Clearly, we are watching the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the midst of his spiritual pastimes. We are not observing an ordinary human being. We are not observing an ordinary human being. Krishna makes two very clear statements in Bhagavad Gita about this point, that he's not an ordinary human being. Well, he makes many actually, but two that apply to us as human beings. One appears in chapter 7 and one appears in chapter 9. So I thought I could base this little talk around those verses. In verse number 24 of the 7th chapter, Krishna says, Avyaktam vyaktim apanam manyate mam abudaya parambhavam ajananto mamavyayam anuttamam. Unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. And in the 9th chapter, 11th verse, Krishna says the following: Avajananti mam muda manushim tanum ashritam parambhavam ajananto mamaputa maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. So these are two very important verses to understand the personal nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the follow-up verses are also very revealing in explaining what are the conclusions of making such a mistake, as thinking that first, that the absolute truth is impersonal, and that somehow or another Krishna assumes, or the impersonal assumes the personality of Krishna. And then in the 9th chapter, about how fools deride Krishna when he descends in the human form, not knowing his transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. The consequences are Naham Prakasha Savasya Yogamaya Samavrita Mudo Yam Navijanati Loko Mamajam Avyayam. Then Mokasa Moka Karmano Moka Jnana Vichetasaha Rakshasim Asarim Chaiva Prakritim Mohinim Shrutha. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I am covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted to demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. Understanding Krishna properly is a very serious business. Unfortunately, in the age that we live in, there's a predominance of what Srila Prabhupada describes in his pranams. There is a predominance of Nirvisesha Sunyavadi, impersonalism and voidism. Actually, Srila Prabhupada wrote that pranam himself because I think I've spoken about this before, that the first pranam, Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Pastacharade Tarane. The first pranam is a generic pranam. And we see in ISKCON now, there are many gurus, and they're all firstly addressed with this pranam, Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale, Srimate, and then the name of the particular guru that the disciple has taken initiation from. And then the second pranam describes the particular mission of an individual guru. So Srila Prabhupada's pranam, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatcha Deshatarane describes firstly Namaste Saraswati Devi. He is the son or the follower, the disciple of Saraswati, meaning Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was known as the Lion Guru in his particular opposition to this philosophy in India of Nirvisesha Sunyavadi, Mayavadi, and Voidist and Mayavad philosophy. Basically, Voidist philosophy is Buddhism, and Mayavadi philosophy is a covered version of Buddhism, covered with a philosophical explanation based on the Vedas, based on Vedic literature. Nonetheless, it's basically the same, that the absolute truth is impersonal and that everything material is ultimately void and therefore Maya. And therefore the conclusion is made by these people that anything which has a form and a personality is Maya. Therefore, Krishna has form and personality, so Krishna is Maya, is a product of Maya. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was very, very militant about this, refuting and destroying this philosophy, so much so that he was known to approach Mayavadi sannyasis and grab them by the scruff of the neck and say, "Give this nonsense up, give this nonsense up." And he was a very big man, very tall man, and he was coming strongly in the line of Lord Chaitanya, and the verse goes on to say, Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine, that Srila Prabhupada, as the follower of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, is preaching the teachings, Gauravani Pracharine. Prachar means to spread. Prachar means to spread. So, Gauravani means the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made it very clear that one should never hear this philosophy, should never hear this philosophy. I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with my voice. His warning was, if you seriously hear this philosophy, your spiritual life will be, will be ruined completely. Mayavadi Basha Nasunibe. Don't hear this nonsense. Just don't hear it. Because, well, actually, for the conditioned soul, it's very alluring, this philosophy, because hidden within it is the conception that all is one, and that actually we're all God. We're all God. The concept that we are part and parcel of God also, in one sense, includes that idea that, yes, we are all the same as God. Part means the part of something. So Krishna is God, we are part of Krishna, so therefore, and Prabhupada explains this also, we are all little sample Krishnas. Little sample Krishnas as parcels, as individuals. So in that is the idea that we're all the same as God. So with a poor fund of knowledge and with a perversion of the philosophy of the absolute truth, we come to the conclusion that we're all God. So therefore, Prabhupada used to explain how Mayavadi philosophies addressed each other as Narayan. You are Narayan, I am Narayan, we're all Narayan. Without the understanding that there is a supreme personality of Godhead, that there is a supreme Brahman, that we are all Brahman, and actually Krishna is also Brahman. But Krishna is Para-Brahman. Para-Brahman. He is the supreme Brahman. So therefore we see Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschachadesha Tarani, that Srila Prabhupada is spreading these teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Western countries, which are full of impersonalism and voidism. Ultimately, therefore, the idea is that God is just energies, just energy. And we are energy. We are part of the energy that is God. But it's an idiotic proposal, because there's no source of energy that doesn't have a person behind it. Like we say many times, like this electric light, it's energy. And we understand it's all around. All these places have got this energy in them now. But if we think it through, the energy, the light comes on because there's a mechanism put there by somebody, and then somebody has to switch it on and switch it off. A living being has to do that. A person has to do that. And if you take it back further all the way, there's a powerhouse. There's a generating station, and along the way there's all the wires and it's all put there by people. And you take it even back further, then all the coal that's needed to run the electricity, what are they called? Generator, what are they called? Power stations. That has to be assayed and found by somebody, and then somebody has to dig it up, and then it has to be transported from where it was to the power station, and then somebody has to manage all of that. And then there's money needed for that, and that money has to be collected by somebody, and on it goes. And all along the way, it's all done by people. And ultimately, as I mentioned this last time I was here, even to hear this nonsense philosophy of Mayavad, you have to hear it from a person. And then the person is telling you that ultimately you're nothing. Ultimately, this ego is all a fabrication of Maya. And all you have to do is get free from all of this, merge back into the oneness of everything, and you'll be God. Or even if you realize that before you shuffle off this mortal coil, you are God. Be still and know that you are God. Unable to give a talk today because I have laryngitis. Well, why is God getting laryngitis? You're all powerful. You're all pervading. You're all knowing. But you get a toothache and you're finished. Nonsense philosophy. Very dangerous, dangerous, dangerous philosophy, because, as this verse says here, all of their, what is it? Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. All defeated in this deluded condition. Very dangerous. Very dangerous to even flirt with this nonsense. And it's very difficult to get it out of your consciousness once it's in there, because it's very, what did I say? Seductive. It's very seductive philosophy. So long as one has the desire to be the controller and the enjoyer, then this is a very nice idea. This is a very nice idea. And in the process of doing it, you miss the whole point, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna exists. Krishna is not a figment of somebody's imagination. Krishna is not a concoction of Maya. Krishna is, and Prabhupada stressed this over and over again, and you read in his purports over and over again, he uses the phrase, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna, the book, the Supreme Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And without the understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot understand his energies. Simple as that. Everything that exists is actually energies. That's a fact. Everything that we see in the material world is energies. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Everything we see is made up of a combination of some or all of these energies. But then Krishna explains, aparayamitas tvanyam prakritim vidime param. Apart from this, apart from these 8 separated material energies, Bhumirapo nalovayu kangmano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yang me bina prakritir ashtara. Aparayam itastvanyam prakritim vidi me param jiva bhuta mahabhavo yayadam dayate jagat. That earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, altogether these 8 constitute my separated material energies. But there is a superior energy of mind consisting of the living entities, living energy. Matter is dead. Matter, as they say, as the line goes in the song, matter cannot move unless it is touched by spirit. Matter cannot move unless it is touched by spirit. So there is a superior energy of mind consisting of the living entities who are struggling hard with this material energy and are sustaining the universe. Everything that is going on in the universe involves the activities of living entities, us. Tadyonini bhutani savanityu padaraya ahankristasya jagata prabhava pralayastata. And Krishna says, but you should know, Arjuna, you should know that of all things spiritual and all things material in this situation, I am both the origin and dissolution of it all. And then he says, one of the most beautiful verses in the whole of the Bhagavad Gita, Matha parataram nanyat kinchidasti tadanjaya mai sava midang protam sutre mani ganariva. There is no truth superior to me, O conqueror of wealth. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. This is what the impersonalists and the Mayavadis miss. They miss the hidden thread that holds everything together. They miss the understanding of the all-pervasive Lord, who is, as he says, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. That takes us actually, it takes the whole scope of the material creation, but it also then brings in the whole scope of the limitless spiritual creation. Everything rests on Krishna. Everything. And as I was talking to Shambhagori yesterday about the concept of everything, there's no everything. Everything infers limit, just like every drop of water in this cup, then it's finished. So if you say everything, then it means there's a limit. You get to the point where you can say, well, we've counted everything now. We've counted how many atoms there are in the material universes. We've counted how many living entities there are in the totality of all that is. But the totality of all that is infinite. There's no end to the Lord and his creations. And then, Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam. There is one Nitya, one eternal entity amongst Nityanam, limitless numbers of living entities, and he is Chaitanas Chaitananam. He is supplying the needs of all, of each and every one. Since time immemorial, or eternally, since time immemorial and forever into the future. And he is not diminished in one iota by all of this. He's not, as this pastime is playfully demonstrating, he's not exhausted. He hasn't run out of energy. He doesn't run out. There's no blackouts in Krishna. There's no death in Krishna. There's no limit. He's not even, it's not that he's never exhausted. It's that he's effortlessly doing all of this. No problem. And it's all going on while in Goloka Vrindavan, in Braja, in Mathura, and in Ayodhya, he's engaged in eternal pastimes and he never leaves them. He never leaves. It's not like, we got an emergency in alpha whatever universes. Better get down there, sort it out. And he doesn't have to give up what he's doing in his intimate pastimes with his eternal associates to go somewhere else and do something. He's omniscient. He's omnipresent. He's all-pervading. He can manifest himself anywhere he likes, anytime he likes, in any form he likes, for anything he wants to do. Effortlessly. Meanwhile, the pastimes of Goloka Vrindavan are not interrupted by this. This is God Almighty. This is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not a figment of somebody's imagination. This is a history book. The Puranas, Purana literally means old, and the Puranas are full of stories relating to the Lord and his pastimes, his various incarnations at various times in various places throughout limitless creations in the material world. Prabhupada explains very early in the Bhagavatam, this is not a chronological history. We're obsessed with chronological history now. The Declaration of Independence was signed at such and such a date in such and such a place in such and such a year by such and such a person. And we think we got it down by just counting every day off. But you don't have to go back very far, and the trail just dries up. 5,000 years, 6,000 years into the past, there's nothing you can say, well, this happened on this day and that happened on the other day, and so on and so forth. So go back 10,000 years, go back 20,000 years, go back 1,000,000 years. And there's no idea of what was going on. We call what was happening 5,000 years ago ancient history. Ancient history, actually, 5,000 years ago, in terms of the understanding of the time scale of the creation, it's just yesterday, practically, or earlier this morning. It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. But what we get now in the Srimad Bhagavatam is the descriptions of the pastimes of the Lord. Now, these pastimes that we're reading now in the 10th canto, this is a history of what happened a little over 5,000 years ago. But leading up to that, there's stories, all the different stories in all the different cantos. They come from different times and different yugas and different planets and different creations even. But they all deal specifically with the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Without the knowledge of which, nothing can actually ultimately make any sense. And that's very clearly explained. Prabhupada, again, once you start to read Srila Prabhupada, at first it's a little confronting and a little hard to assimilate, because what he's saying is so radical. But once you start to get some comprehension of what he's saying, you realize what he says is just so powerful. And in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, when we have this verse where Arjuna actually surrenders to Krishna, he actually surrenders in his ignorance and his bewilderment, his perplexity, which is what we all have to do. We all have to, like I said yesterday, admit that we don't know something. We don't know where we come from. We don't know why we're here, and we don't know where we're going, which is actually pretty crazy. Yeah. There's the example of, say we came down on the train. So next week we're going back on the train. So we get on the train and we get around this little 4-seat around the table, and there's another person there. And we try to strike up a conversation with that person. And you say, where are you coming from? They say, I don't know. So, where are you going? I don't know. Well, what are you doing here? Oh, I don't know. You're going to be looking for the medics, aren't you? You're going to be looking, keep this person busy while we get the people in the white coats. This person's in a bad state. Yeah. But here we are, we've taken birth, we're here, we're struggling for an existence on this planet. We know death is coming. We have no idea what happens after that. And still we claim to be masters of nature, masters of the universe. Man, the pinnacle of evolution. All nonsense. Because in the purport of this verse where Arjuna surrenders to Krishna, Prabhupada says, by nature's own way, the complete system of material activities is a source of perplexity for everyone. In every step there is perplexity, and therefore it behooves one to approach a bona fide spiritual master who can give one proper guidance for executing the purpose of life. There is a purpose to life. There is the purpose of the human form of life. And that purpose is very simple, to make spiritual advancement, to make advancement back home, back to Godhead, towards the place from whence we actually came, but which we've completely, due to the perplexity that comes upon us, due to the ignorance and bewilderment that comes upon us by becoming covered by this external material energy of the Lord, or these external material energies, beginning with false ego. We fall into delusion. Our true knowledge is covered by ignorance, and as a result of that, we get entangled with the three modes of material nature, and as a result of that, we become more bewildered and more forgetful and more entangled, and on it goes endlessly. It just keeps going. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. Birth, death, old age, disease. Birth, death, old age, disease. Birth as a tree. Trees get diseases. All kinds of diseases in trees. There's one here in England, the ash tree, or what, birch tree? Ash. That ash got some kind of fungus in it or something, and got all knobbly, and they think they might have found a cure for it now. But beautiful ash trees become horribly disfigured by this disease. And then they get old. And then they die.
Yeah.
And then you take birth as an anaconda in the Amazon jungle. You get disease, you get old, and you die. And then you take birth as a demigod. Well, they are actually free from old age and disease. They're just born and die. Oh, well, that sounds pretty good. At least I won't get old and get sick. Yes, but you're going to die. And on it goes through 8,400,000 species of life. Now, that's another thing that I think needs some real consideration when we talk about the species of life, because sometimes Prabhupada says 8,400,000 forms of life. And then sometimes he says species of life. But the word species, to tabulate all of the different entities that are observed, was coined by a Swedish monk called Linnaeus. This is all around the time of the 19th century, Darwin and all this stuff. And he delineated the idea of species, but he also delineated the idea of a genus. So, like, he says, like, for instance, there are many species of dog. And what ties them all together is their canine genus. So they get these Latin names, canine, whatever it is, canine, da-da-da-da-da. So many different species of dogs, but all with the same genus. So, and then you can interbreed all of that and create all kinds of mongrel dogs. So actually, then the species idea is like, it's a little off. The form is more the description, and that means like genus. So instead of thinking there's hundreds and thousands of species of dog, there's one genus, one form, dog, with infinite varieties. So if you take that perspective on 8,400,000, then you begin to understand that actually, with all the variegatedness within a form, it's just bewildering how many forms of life there are that you can take birth in according to your karma. And What does it say? By nature's arrangement, what is it? Read it again, Buggy. By nature's own way, the complex system of material activities is a source of perplexity for everyone. Because we're in ignorance. We're born in ignorance of where we are, why we're here, what all this is. And we're given concocted conceptions of what it is. Mentally concocted conceptions. Man is an animal. He evolved from lower species of life. And then where does all of that come from? Well, ultimately, it's all a product of matter. So there was a joke going around about that a while back. It said, well, if you really want to have like a family photograph, you better have some rocks there. You better have a pile of matter, of just earth. Because according to this crazy philosophy, that's where we all come from. And in philosophical terms, it's called the causeless cause of all causes. So a gross materialist will say that everything comes from matter. And then you say, well, where does the matter come from? And he'll say, well, there's nothing. That's it.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter, right? That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because there's only matter. Don't worry about anything else. But Prabhupada's challenge to that was always say, all right, you take all the elements that make up a body and produce a living being from it. Can't be done. Never has never been done and will never be done because matter cannot move without being touched by spirit. And spirit is indicated by the presence of consciousness. Now, of course, there's another crazy philosophy around at the moment that consciousness itself is just another material element, and that in the arrangement of material elements to produce a living being, somehow or another, they can't explain why or how, but somehow or another, consciousness is in the mix. This again is Mayavad philosophy. It's impersonalist philosophy, because the argument is that when you die, then, or as all the material elements just go back to where they come from, so consciousness just merges back into the reservoir of consciousness that pervades everything as another element. But it doesn't explain design. It doesn't explain how there's order and everything is in balance. Even so, then you go through the arguments of what is the cause of all causes. First of all, the materialists will say there's just matter. Then these other people will say, well, just ultimately there's just oneness. That there's an all-pervading oneness through everything. And all we have to do is merge back into that oneness. So in other words, basically, your perfection of life is to cease to exist. Perfection is to cease to exist. And that's nirvana. That's the Buddhist philosophy. Prabhupada gives a simple example of, say you have a house, then you can just dismantle the house. Somebody comes and takes the windows out. Somebody comes and takes this out, that out. Of course, now they just use a wrecking ball and smash the whole thing down. But it didn't used to be like that. There would be a process where you just dismantle, take the roof off, take things. But eventually you dismantle the whole thing and there's nothing there. So this is considered to be the perfection, but it's based upon a poor fund of knowledge because there's no understanding. They say you just have to get rid of the ego. But there's no understanding that this is a false ego and it covers the real ego. Ego means I exist. I am. I am. I saw an interview with, what's his name? Jung. And they said, when did you have your first understandings of psychology? He said, when I was 7. They said, when I was 7. He said, when you were 7? He said, yes. He said, at 7, I realized I exist. I exist. So what is that I? That's where the poor fund of knowledge comes in. But then with just common sense, if you accept the search for truth as searching for the causeless cause of all causes, because everything that exists as a cause, as an effect of a cause. So is reality therefore just an endless regression of cause and effect, or effect from a cause, which is in itself an effect from a previous cause, and on, and an endless regression? That's a concocted conception. That's a concocted conception in the mind of a living entity. And if you actually want to get a full grasp on the idea of a causeless cause of all causes, then the causeless cause of all causes must be the source of everything. So we are living beings, and we are part and parcel of what you can say is everything. And we exist as persons, and we have form. So form and personality must exist in the source. QED. Any child can understand that. So then the idea of God comes in. God is the Almighty, the creator of everything, the father of everyone, the all-powerful, the all-knowing, the omnipresent, all the epithets that you pin onto this God. But then the big question is, well, who is that person? I'm not that person. You're not that person. I don't know anyone who's that person. Well, it's just God. But God's the position. God's not the name. It's become the name of a person, God. But actually, it's like when Hayagriva started editing Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada's English was actually very good. And he had a certain kind of, his English came from 19th century. And as he wrote the Bhagavatam, there was one point where Hayagriva was looking at a translation and it said, "Oh, comma, the king." And Hayagriva thought, does he mean that the name of the king is O? And he dropped the T, the. It's O king. But in correct English, O, the king, is right. And literally it should be O, the God of gods, with the understanding there are many gods, some of them bona fide, some of them concocted, all the way down to the big guns in human society, the ministers in the government and so on. They're all godlike. They have godlike powers of control and so forth. And from the Vedas, we understand demigods, 33 million demigods administrate the whole universe. They are the demigods. So then who is the God of the demigods? Who is the ultimate God? Who? Who is it? Krishna. Krishna is. Krishna's the cause of all causes. Krishna's the cause of all causes. And then people whose minds have been blown by all this crazy impersonalism, which is, we should understand, has been insidiously pervading the Western countries for centuries now. So that it's just common. It's not even questioned anymore. To the point where even amongst religionists, they cannot accept the idea of an entity, one entity. We have an impersonalist woofer up on the farm at the moment. And one night we showed all the volunteers the latest movie, Hare Krishna, the mantra, the movement, and the Swami that made it all happen. And he saw it and he watched it and he was looking. He's German. And then his conclusion after, you cannot reduce everything to a person. And this is limiting. They have so much attachment to the material world, so much involvement in material mental concoctions, so much Mooneyism. Mooney. Prabhupada's so funny. In 259, where Krishna says you become a Stita Diya Muni. Prabhupada gives a definition of a Muni. It's very funny. Hold on a second. Where are we? 56. The word Muni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion.
Wow.
Read on. It is said that every Muni has a different angle of vision. And unless a Muni differs from other Munis, he cannot be called a Muni in the strict sense of the term. That takes into account the entirety of academia. Every PhD is a Muni, and he's got a different angle on everything. I remember when I was at university as an undergraduate, there were PhD students there, and I got friendly with the one of them. I said, "What's your topic?" He said, "I'm writing a thesis on the point between where a flame meets the air." PhD on that point where a flame ceases to be a flame and then there's air. What's happening there on that margin?
10,000 words.
And now you go into the libraries and there's countless of these theses on this and that and the other. Mooneyism. It's all speculation as to what is what and what is going on and how it's all working. Because, as Srila Prabhupada said one time when he arrived somewhere and a reporter said, "Why have you come here?" He said, "I've come to remind you or teach you what you have forgotten. You have forgotten God." Oh, no, we know God's the Father. No. You have forgotten who is God. And this is what actually scares the living daylights out of people. Because the last thing they wanted to do is get personal. let's not get personal about this, because then I might actually have to follow all these rules and regulations, all the laws of God, the injunctions of the Lord. Interesting word, injunction also. It actually comes from yoga. Junction, to join things together, a junction. So the injunctions of the Lord are actually there for us to again become connected with him. But the real problem is we don't want that. That's why we're here. That's why we're in the material world. We don't want to know that. I want to be able to do what I please, whenever I please. And Krishna is so kind. He says, okay, go do it. You want to do it, you do it. But he's also so kind that he never just puts us into the madhouse and leaves us there. He comes with us. He comes with us. He creates the madhouse. He creates this crazy, crazy material world and lets us loose in it to do whatever we like. And he knows whatever we like because he's sitting within our hearts. And he, as Prabhupada says in the purport to 5.15, he says, and he can understand the desires of a living entity like one can smell the flavor of a flower by being near it. He understands everything. He knows everything. He knows what you want. And he makes arrangement for you to get what you want according to what you deserve within the rules of the game. And therefore, you never get what you want because you want to be the supreme controller of everything. And you want everything at your fingertips. And you want to be able to enjoy as you like, when you like, where you like. And when you're fed up with that, just fly away to the next place. You can never get that. You can never get that because this whole material world is set up as a place of rewards and penalties. So many rewards you get, so many penalties you get. And you have to undergo each reward and you have to undergo each penalty. You can't avoid it. Because it's controlled. It's out of our control. Maya jakshina prakriti suyate sa characharam hetu nanenu kunteya jagat viparivatata. This material energy is working under my direction and is producing all moving and non-moving living beings. This is complete knowledge. This is complete knowledge. Without this knowledge of the Bhagavan, the source of everything, the source of all opulences, the source of all energies, the source of all elements, the source of everything, without this knowledge that this source of everything is not just source, it's the source, the supreme personality of Godhead, Krishna. When Prabhupada met with a group of people from Mensa, he began by saying, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Take it. Take it. Take it. Take this. Take it. Take it into your consciousness. And let Krishna do his magic and clarify your consciousness and reveal to you the truth of your existence and take you back to him. Mamu Pecha Takunta, come to me. Come to me. And all you have to do is hear this stuff over and over and over and over again. And as you do that, gradually the clouds of illusion, the clouds of bewilderment, the clouds of perplexity disappear. The false ego dissolves and you see things as they are. The mind ceases from mental material mental activities, and we become fixed on Krishna. And we see Krishna in everything and understand everything is actually Krishna, manifesting himself in infinite ways. No, that's not bad. We'll stop there and see if there's any questions or reflections.
So same as yesterday, if anybody on Zoom has a question or would like to share realization, please raise a hand. But in the meantime, is there anybody in the temple room that would like to raise something?
Oh, Helen, yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm wondering, because you said that God, obviously God has many forms, and then Krishna is like the God of the gods, the source of all these gods. I'm wondering if there's are there other religions or spiritual paths that recognize this concept that there are many positions of God, but one supreme God?
No. There's if you flip it, like Srimad Bhagavatam and all the Vedic literatures have been put in mythology. So also all the history of the gods of the Greeks, of the gods of the Babylonian, the gods of the Middle East, the Norse gods, all of the gods, the history of the gods have been put in the mythology book. But if you pull them out and treat them as history, then you start to see that there's a lot of understanding of the demigods and the hierarchy of the demigods. But there's no real clear conception anywhere except within the Vedic literature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you have there's a Sanskrit thread. Indra is known as I can't get this right. I can't get it right. I can't remember the Sanskrit term, but it's a Sanskrit term. And then if you study linguistics a little bit, you see how there's a phony language called Proto-Indo-European that the European linguists concocted when they came in contact with Sanskrit. After they dealt with Latin and Greek, then they came in Sanskrit, and Sanskrit just blew their minds. And then they saw connections between Sanskrit, Greek, and Latin. So rather than say, oh, here's the source of these things, they grouped the three languages together and created this phony thing called Proto-Indo-European. But if you look at what I'm talking about, the gods of the Romans and the gods of the Greeks, you have Zeus and Jupiter. Yes. Now I forget. I'd have to get my reference on it. But there's a description of how the name of Indra one name of Indra is Deospati. Deospati, but with a slight shift of vowel and consonant, you come up with Zeus and Jupiter. So the understanding is there that all these demigods, if you could trace out the etymology of the names and so forth, would generally lead you back to names of demigods in Sanskrit. But that's just the material world. There's no understanding, because these things are all Kali Yuga. The Greek culture and the Roman culture, they're all Kali Yuga cultures. So there's a huge curtain of bewilderment came down when Krishna left the planet and the Kali Yuga began, and knowledge of the absolute truth became locked up in India. And then you have Buddhism and impersonalism and so forth, covering it even further. But there's no conception, there's only the conception of an absolute one God, but no knowledge of who that actually is. It's just God. And then there are names, Jehovah, Allah, and so on, which indicate qualities of this one God. But there's no complete understanding and description of this person. That's in the Vedic literature. Krishna says in the 15th chapter, by all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the knower of the Veda and the compiler of the Vedanta. And then the Vedanta has a commentary. The natural commentary on the Srimad of the Vedanta Sutra is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And as we read in the 5th chapter of the first canto, when Narada appears to Vyasa, who's become perplexed after compiling everything except the Srimad Bhagavatam, he says to him, your problem is you failed to delineate the name, the fame, the qualities, and the pastimes of the Supreme Being. You've got all this other stuff in here about demigods and so forth, but you haven't described the source of it all, the causeless cause of it all. And until and unless that happens, you can't be happy. You're going to be morose. Yes.
Would it be all this religion sourced from India 5,000 years ago? The Egyptians, they went to India and they came back with some.
Well, it wasn't like that. They went to India and came back with. In previous times, India ruled the world. What we call India today was the seat of a global empire, based upon dharmic principles, and the emperor oversaw all the kings of the world. Actually, it's kind of concentric. There was still like, you know, the tribes in the jungles and so forth, but they all accept something as an absolute. But they're Shaktas. But the real philosophy of human culture is bhakti, bhakta. So originally, and Kali Yuga is where all of this just breaks down completely. It was already in a very dysfunctional state when Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago. It had been drifting towards that situation. But India is so important in the universe. India is actually the seat of Vedic knowledge for the whole universe. And when you think about it, it's called India today, but it's previously known as by other names, Ilavatavasya, Bharatvasya. But the point about this tract of land is that this is the only place in the universe where Krishna appears and enacts his pastimes and reveals himself. Of course, the demigods are watching it all. It's a huge show. The Krishna's pastimes. It's a universal event, and the demigods take birth, and they're instructed to take birth and take part in the Yadu dynasty and so forth.
I didn't have the sense of the word bhakti.
Sorry?
Bhakti.
Bhakti? I didn't hear.
I didn't understand the word bhakti.
Oh, bhakti? Bhakti means love of God, love of Krishna. Krishna says, bhaktya mam abhijanati, only by love, only by practice of this process of uncovering your eternal love for Krishna. Love for Krishna is eternally established within every living being. It's not something that has to be put there. Prabhupada says it's like your stomach.
Yeah.
Like eating and digesting food is natural.
Yeah.
Yes, but sometimes your digestion, your stomach gets deranged. So the doctor comes and he tries to bring balance back. He doesn't install a digesting machine into you. Well, they're trying to do that now. That's what that with that misunderstanding of things. But it's innate in every living being. Every living being eats. Every living being in their spiritual identity loves Krishna. We exist. The purpose of our existence, the eternal purpose of our eternal existence is to love Krishna, to be in love with Krishna, which means not just to, there are mutual situations where certain entities just love observing it all. But from then on, it gets to interactive. You go from Shantaras, which is this neutral observing situation. Then you enter into practical servitorship, serving the Lord. Then you enter into friendship. Then you enter into parental, or then you enter into conjugal love. All of them are actually imbued with love. It's not just, oh, unless I'm a gopi, I can't love Krishna. The Prabhupada says in one lecture, in Vrindavan, everyone loves Krishna. And he lists, he says, Mother Yasoda loves Krishna. Nanda Maharaj loves Krishna. All the elderly gopis love Krishna. All the cowherd men love Krishna. All of the gopis love Krishna. All of the cowherd boys love Krishna. All of the cows and the bulls and the calves, they all love Krishna. And he goes on, he lists, and all the flowers and all the trees and everyone in Vrindavan loves Krishna. And then he says, so if you can learn to love Krishna, this whole world will be like Goloka Vrindavan. Yeah. All that is missing in our existence is our awareness of our love for Krishna.
I also the word Shantara. And I heard it when I was a kid from my mother many times. But she said it in another concept. And I never asked how that means, because there was many Indian word in my.
Well, Shanta means peace, at peace.
Oh.
The Prabhupada says the word saint comes from that. Really? Shanta.
She used to say it when we go a bit agitated in the house, the kids.
Shanti.
Yeah.
Shanti, calm down.
Thank you very much.
Let's get peaceful here.
Thank you very much.
Very
for my life. I can try that meeting.
That's anything else? Yes, sir.
No, second.
Okay.
Could I ask something? Is there anybody else got anything? Prabhu, you started the class explaining Srila Prabhupada's pranam mantra.
Yeah.
And with yourself and Sarva Mangala both being direct disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and you spent time in his personal presence. Could you explain a bit about how you feel Prabhupada's personal presence today, and does that increase as time goes on, as you go forward in your Krishna consciousness?
Feeling Prabhupada's presence. Yes. But it's not limited to Prabhupada's direct disciples. People say, oh, you saw Srila Prabhupada. Well, I know disciples of Srila Prabhupada who never saw him. They were never physically in the same place as Prabhupada. I mean, this becomes a very different proposition today than it was in Prabhupada's day. I mean, every single guru that I know is personally present at the initiation of disciples. But it wasn't like that in Prabhupada's day. Every single disciple has access to their guru through social media. In our day, you'd be in the temple president would write a letter to Prabhupada and say, Bhakti and so-and-so, Bhakti so-and-so are ready for initiation. And so and the temple president or the GBC would be recommending them. So that letter would go to Prabhupada. Then a week or so, or 2 weeks later, a letter would come back and Prabhupada would say, yes, I've accepted Bhakti and so-and-so. You can give her this name at the fire and conduct the fire sacrifice. And some of those people, that happened and they never saw Srila Prabhupada. Both of us were actually, as time goes by, we realize how inconceivable our good fortune was that we did have some exchange, personal one-to-one exchange with Srila Prabhupada. Most of Prabhupada's disciples didn't. So then when it comes down to it, well, you saw Srila Prabhupada. Well, even some of them didn't see Srila Prabhupada, but say you saw Srila Prabhupada. Say you will, and then Prabhupada didn't visit every temple where he had disciples. After a certain time, he would go to the major temples and he'd be there for a few days or a few weeks. And some devotees would be able to come from other temples and see Srila Prabhupada at that temple, whereas other devotees had to stay back and maintain the temple. So then they would see Srila Prabhupada. You'd see Srila Prabhupada come out of his quarters and go for his morning walk. Maybe you get lucky enough to go on the morning walk. And maybe then, all right, you get a little bit closer. You might even ask Prabhupada a question on the morning walk. But the morning walk wasn't like, 500 devotees. It was maybe 10, 20 devotees. And then you'd see him come back and he'd circumambulate the temple. And then you'd see him come in the temple and you'd see him greet the deities and bow down in front of all the altars. And you'd see him get on his Vyasasana. And you'd see him receive Guru Puja. You'd offer flower. You'd bow down. Then everybody would sit down and then we'd hear him. We hear him speak. Now you can see pictures of all of that stuff moving and still. But the most important thing about it all is you can still hear him. You can still hear him. And he's our Acharya in that regard. And if you hear Srila Prabhupada, if you seriously give submissive oral reception to Srila Prabhupada speaking, and that also includes reading his books, then you will feel Srila Prabhupada's presence in your life grow in a very personal and intimate way.
I like that story that Guru Charana Padma told that time.
Go on. Go on.
There was at Soho Street, they had a theme for an anniversary of the Radhaneshwar, and the theme was book distribution. And so Guru Charana Padma was asked to speak because she was a very good book distributor.
So she was the biggest.
She was the biggest, yeah. And so she was describing things, and she was saying sometimes when you first go out and the first person you speak to, sometimes that's a bit difficult, to get going. And then she went on and spoke for a while, and then there were questions. And her daughter said to her, she put her hand up, and she had a question. She said, what did you do when it was difficult to start to connect with the people? And she said, well, I chanted Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Sri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktavrinda. And then I, tried to distribute the book. And then I went on to the next person doing the same, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. And then she said it became like a dance. And then just listening to her, you could understand that she was feeling Prabhupada's presence in those instructions she gave to say that prayer, and that manifested, in her service. That's how she experienced Srila Prabhupada's miracle in Prabhupada's presence, and she never actually saw him in the flesh. The seeing is hearing, isn't it?
The proof of the pudding is in the eat. So my strong recommendation to everyone is develop a relationship with Srila Prabhupada through hearing. And after some time, you'll realize Srila Prabhupada is speaking directly to you. And he's aware of you.
You do get,
Sorry?
sometimes you're reading a book you've read quite a few times, and then, Bhagavad Gita, and then you say, how did I miss that? And something's happening at the time, and you just get what you need to, and you feel Krishna's presence, Prabhupada's presence. They're speaking to you, aren't they? It's amazing.
I'll tell you a little story
Relevant to you.
in this regard. I was in, thank you, Saba, that was very nice. Thank you for that.
It took me a while to hear what you said.
I was in Govardhan in it will be 2009. I was there at the Kartik book reading with Vaisheshika Prabhu. And I had one of the little rooms on the roof to myself. And early one morning, just before the reading, after breakfast, between breakfast and the reading start, I was listening to a lecture. I had my computer and I was listening to a lecture by Srila Prabhupada. And at the same time, I had the Jaru broom and I was sweeping it out. And I was bent down sweeping. And as I got to the door to sweep the dust out, I saw, oh, there's somebody here. And I looked up. And it was a godbrother, sannyasi, who had taken sannyas from Narayan Maharaj. And anyway, it was quite controversial in the day, these kind of things. He'd taken sannyas and taken another name. And anyway, he'd come to see me and he was all friendly, asking how are you, how's Sava? He knew Sava and knew me. And so I brought him into the room. We sat down and we talked he mainly talked for about 20 minutes. And he mentioned Gurudev all the time, meaning Narayan Maharaj. He never once mentioned Srila Prabhupada. And that really disturbed my mind. I was like, well, where's Prabhupada in all this? Anyway, he went. And I was not feeling good. I was very disturbed. And I thought, oh, well, and I just put the lecture back on. And I guess it must have been a minute in, Prabhupada says, you must be loyal to your Guru Maharaj. Oh, yeah. Pause, and then he says, you must be loyal to your Guru Maharaj. It says it very loud. And then he went down and he said, because it is your Guru Maharaj who introduces you to Krishna. And my heart just went, oh, that's the answer. That's why I felt that way I did. You can't hedge your bet on this. Prabhupada says, if you want to gamble, put all your chips on Krishna. And Krishna's representative. So that was an example for me. And Prabhupada was speaking directly to me at that point when I needed to hear that. Yes.
He was not there. Just to hear his
It was
voice.
just his voice, just his recorded voice.
Yeah, Krishna's presence in Prabhupada's books as well.
And Krishna's present, yeah. Yes. This is real. This is real. You just have to open yourself up to it. That's all. And it's all of us. That we all suffer from like kind of imposter syndrome. We think, who, me? Me? Krishna's aware of me, Prabhupada's aware of me, and yes. Take it. Take it. It's freely offered. Just take it. Take it into your life. Take your life into it. Yes.
Can I say that thing about when I was quite new in the temple and I couldn't relate to everything, you know. I could relate to some things and the philosophy, that was like something you'd been yearning for. But then there were some other things like Upanishad, I think it was the Upanishad cover. So many heads, and I thought, I couldn't relate to that. It's really bizarre. And you have these doubts, and I felt really uncomfortable about that. And it was early morning. I seem to get dreams early morning, and dropped off to sleep, and suddenly in the dream, I felt there was a sound of a heartbeat, and at the same time I heard my own voice, and I was seeing the picture of Lord Vishnu, and everything was like a glow, and then I heard my voice going, Krishna, 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 Krishna. It was also the beat of the heart. My heart, my heart, my heart, my heart. And then I think like sometimes, you know, you don't have the ability to sort out your doubts. You don't, you know, on the mental platform, you keep thinking, oh, I shouldn't think this, or why don't I understand that? And then somehow it could be so many different ways that, you know, something will present you that it is real, that Krishna is in your heart, and you can feel that, and by Prabhupada's mercy. And I'm sure we all get those kind of experiences where there's revelation. It's not an ascending process, is it? It's a descending process of mercy. And I think you can embrace those times.
Well, it's
personal. It's very personal.
Very personal. Several years ago, quite a number of years ago now, Shiva Maharaj wrote a Vyasa Puja offering about how he asked one of his female disciples, how did you become a devotee? And she told this amazing story about how her brother had bought some books on the street, brought them home to the house, showed his mother. She said, "Oh, your grandmother will like these books." She lived upstairs, so he took them up to grandma, and she started reading them. That night she had a dream, and in the dream, Prabhupada came to her. And he said, "You're the head of this family. You're the religious leader. Now you're understanding what I'm saying here. You make your family devotees." Next morning, grandma comes down. No more meat, no more this. Whole thing. And he said, and he was lamenting. He said, "Well, you appear to a so-called non-devotee. What have I done? Why can't you do that to me?" So we are living in a false separation. There is no separation. We are separated by this false ego, by this illusion. But like Prabhupada said, Krishna is all pervasive. Krishna is everywhere. We just can't see him. So the spiritual master appears. And he appears in his books. And in the age we're in, it's wonderful. The books, the recordings, the videos, it's all there. You just have to open up your heart and let the sun shine in.
Prabhupada introduces you to Krishna in many ways.
Yes. So embrace it and develop your relationship with Krishna or with Prabhupada. Actually, you must feel the presence of Prabhupada here. Prabhupada's presence is very strong in this center because you and your wife adhere so strongly to the instructions. He lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. And he lives with the follower. There you go. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatriyasta Sukhasindhavayavita Dhanam Bhambanivyo Paishkavebhyo Om Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So thank you to everybody for joining us. Be more later today. There'll be Harinam just at 3 o'clock, or as near to 3 o'clock as we can usually manage it. And then there'll be a Sunday feast program at 4 p.m. And you'll have the opportunity to speak to Bhagavat Ashraya and Sarvamangala Prabhuji yet, but we'll let you know if anything's happening on Wednesday morning or Thursday morning. But thank you for joining us, and we wish you a very peaceful Krishna conscious day. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimati Tulsi Devi ki jai, Shishi Paladna Singha ki jai, Shishi Nitai Gaurasunda ki jai, Vaishnav Sangha, Vaishnav Seva ki jai, Nitai Gaura. Hare Krishna, we'll see you soon.